This is question 8 in my foundation series. Why you wake up exhausted no matter how much you sleep. This is question 8 explained. Do you have unrestorative sleep, cortisol dysregulation, and how it relates to the insulin-sleep connection? So you got 7 hours of sleep last night, maybe 8. You went to bed at a reasonable time. You didn't wake up in the middle of the night. And you woke up this morning feeling like you hadn't slept at all. Heavy, unrefreshed, like sleep didn't do what it was supposed to do. And this isn't occasional. This is most mornings. You need coffee just to feel functional, and you've tried going to bed earlier. You've tried supplements, and nothing is fixing the fact that no matter how much you sleep, you don't feel rested. What if the problem isn't how much you sleep, but what's happening in your body while you're sleeping? Today I'm going to walk you through the connection between insulin resistance and unrestorative sleep, because this is one of the most overlooked pieces of the metabolic puzzle. I'm Dr. Kim, the insulin resistance doctor, and I've been in clinical practice for 40 years. And before we move on, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell button so that you will get notified when new videos are available. It really does help my channel, and I personally read and respond to every one. This video is based on question 8 of the free 1-minute insulin resistance quiz. I wake up tired even after a full night's sleep. The quiz takes 60 seconds, and I personally respond if you email me your score with what your results suggest and which lab numbers I'd look at. The link is in the description. Now let's get into why this keeps happening. Question 8 says, I wake up tired even after a full night's sleep. This symptom is one that most people chalk up to getting older, working too hard, or just being the kind of person who needs more sleep. And sometimes those things are true. But when this is a consistent pattern, when sleep doesn't improve with more rest, when it's been going on for months or even years, it's worth asking what's happening during those sleep hours that's preventing genuine restoration. Because sleep isn't just unconsciousness, it's an active physiological process. And insulin resistance interferes with several of the mechanisms that make sleep restorative. Let me give you a quick picture of what your body is supposed to be doing while you sleep, because this matters for understanding why insulin resistance disrupts it. During sleep, specifically slow wave sleep, your body does its most important repair work. Growth hormone is released, tissue is repaired, the brain clears metabolic waste products through a system called the lymphatic system. Cortisol drops to its lowest point of the day, and insulin sensitivity actually improves overnight. The last point is important. Healthy sleep is one of the ways your body resets its insulin sensitivity. It's a natural overnight recalibration. But in insulin resistance, that recalibration process is disrupted. Blood sugar and insulin instability during the night interferes with the depth and quality of sleep, even when total sleep hours look fine from the outside. Here's one of the key mechanisms. When blood sugar drops during the night, which can happen in insulin resistance when insulin overshoots, the body releases cortisol and adrenaline as counter-regulatory hormones to bring blood sugar back up. This is a survival response, and it works. But it also partially rouses you from sleep, from deep sleep specifically. You may not fully wake up, and you may not even remember it. But your body spent part of the night in a stress response instead of in restorative deep sleep. You wake up with 7 or 8 hours logged, and you feel like you barely slept because metabolically your most restorative sleep stages were interrupted. I want to spend a few minutes on cortisol specifically because the relationship between cortisol and insulin is central to this symptom, and it's something most people never have heard explained. Cortisol is your primary stress hormone, but it's also a blood sugar regulation hormone. Cortisol raises blood sugar. That's one of its jobs, to make sure your body has fuel available during stress. In a healthy system, cortisol follows a natural daily rhythm. It peaks in the morning. That's what helps you wake up and feel alert. It declines throughout the day, and it's at its lowest point at night, allowing deep restorative sleep. In insulin resistance, this rhythm is often dysregulated because blood sugar is unstable. The body is calling on cortisol throughout the night to manage it. Instead of cortisol staying low overnight, it can spike in response to blood sugar drops. And those cortisol spikes are activating. They pull you out of deep sleep, and here's the cycle that makes this so difficult. Poor sleep drives cortisol higher the next day. Higher cortisol drives blood sugar higher. Higher blood sugar drives more insulin. More insulin drives more resistance. More resistance drives more blood sugar instability at night, which disrupts sleep again. Once you're in that very difficult cycle, it feeds itself. Sleep, cortisol, and insulin are tightly linked, and you cannot fix one without addressing the others. There are two other pieces I want to mention because they come up so consistently in clients and patients with this symptom. In adrenal fatigue, or more accurately, HPA axis dysregulation, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, your stress response system, can become dysregulated when it's been chronically activated. The adrenal glands, which produce cortisol, can start to produce either too much or too little at the wrong times. Morning cortisol that's too low is one of the most common reasons people wake up feeling completely unrested. Because that morning cortisol surge that's supposed to drive the energy to get you out of bed simply isn't there. Insulin resistance and HPA dysregulation frequently travel together. They feed each other. Addressing insulin resistance often helps normalize the cortisol rhythm as well. And we're going to discuss this thyroid function. Chronically elevated insulin can also suppress thyroid function. And a sluggish thyroid makes everything feel heavy, including sleep. If you're waking up exhausted and also feeling cold, losing hair, or gaining weight without explanation, thyroid labs are worth looking at. But thyroid problems are often downstream of insulin, which is why treating the thyroid alone sometimes doesn't fully resolve the fatigue. On the functional medicine side, we check function, and that means looking at the whole picture. Insulin, cortisol rhythm, and thyroid, not just treating whatever single marker falls outside the standard range. And now comes the lab picture. For someone with this symptom, waking up tired despite adequate sleep, here's what I want to see in the lab work. First, fasting insulin and fasting glucose, so I can calculate HOMA-IR and confirm whether insulin resistance is present. Second, a 4-point cortisol test, ideally salivary, that measures cortisol at 4 points across the day, morning, midday, afternoon, and evening. That gives us a picture of whether the cortisol rhythm is normal or dysregulated. A flat cortisol curve, or one with a blunted morning peak, is a very common finding in people with this symptom. Third, a full thyroid panel, not just TSH, but free T3, free T4, and thyroid antibodies. TSH alone misses too much. Together, these three areas, insulin, cortisol rhythm, and thyroid, give us a functional picture of why sleep isn't restoring. And once we know which piece is most dysregulated, we have a starting point for actually fixing it. If waking up exhausted is something you've accepted as just how you are, I want to encourage you to take the full quiz before you decide that. Because unrestorative sleep combined with other symptoms on that list, afternoon cravings, post-meal fatigue, weight that won't budge, paints a picture that points strongly toward insulin resistance as the common denominator or the common thread. The quiz is in the description below. It takes 1 minute or 60 seconds. And if you email me your score, I personally respond. The link is in the description. Now let me give you a practical starting framework. First, stabilize blood sugar before bed. A small protein-based snack before bed, not carbohydrates, can help blood sugar drops that triggers the overnight cortisol response. A few nuts, some cheese, a small amount of protein. Now this is not a long-term fix, but it can interrupt the overnight disruption while you work on the root cause. Second, prioritize sleep consistency over sleep quantity. Going to bed and waking up the same time every day, even on weekends, helps stabilize the cortisol rhythm. Consistency of timing matters more than hours for resetting the HPA axis. Third, ask your doctor for the right labs: fasting insulin, fasting glucose, 4-point salivary cortisol, and a full thyroid panel including thyroid antibodies. Bring these requests to your doctor specifically. I actually did it today, and I got my insulin and hemoglobin A1 test done today, fasting. And if your doctor is resistant to the cortisol testing, ask them about AM cortisol blood draw as a starting point. And fourth, take the quiz. Your score tells me how many of these symptoms are present simultaneously. The more overlap there is, the more clearly insulin resistance is the common thread, and the more urgently the labs are worth ordering. Waking up exhausted every morning when you've done everything right, when you've got enough hours in, is demoralizing in a way that's hard to describe. It affects your whole life, your mood, your focus, your patience, your ability to show up fully in your life. And when I tell patients that this isn't aging, it isn't inevitable, and it often has a metabolic explanation that can actually be addressed, the relief on their face is something I've never gotten used to seeing. Because they've stopped believing it could change. But it can change, and when we find the root and address it, sleep becomes restorative again. The morning heaviness lifts, and I've watched it happen over and over and more times than I can count. Go take the quiz in the description below this video and email me your score. I'll respond personally to you. I read every one, and if you're ready to sit down and talk through your specific situation, the coaching call link is in the description also. In the next series is question 4. Is your waist size growing even when your weight hasn't changed much? That's another symptom that has a very specific insulin explanation, and it's one of the most important symptoms to understand. I'm Dr. Kim, the insulin resistance doctor. Know your numbers, change your future. I'll see you in the next video, and don't forget to like, hit the bell button, and subscribe, and share my videos. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you. How was that? Was it good?